Hello, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Adam Golov, Marketing and Communications Manager at Data Conversion Laboratory, and I'll be your moderator today. Before we get started, I want to let you know we will allow time at the end of the webinar for questions and answers. So please write your questions in the chat area as they come to mind. If we don't have time to answer them all, we will make them available on our website. For those of you who are not familiar with DCL, we convert and organize content to create electronic documents, populate databases, publish on the web, and basically get it ready for tomorrow's technology. DCL services help you refine your document conversion strategy, identify document redundancy, extract metadata, and transform legacy and future documents for real needs, today and in the future. Today we are thrilled to introduce Rachel Amesbury, Account Executive at Shorthand. Rachel represents digital storytelling tool Shorthand in the U.S. She assists clients with demonstrations, onboarding, storytelling best practices, technical support, and more. Rachel has spent the last decade working across 3 continents within advertising agencies and for a number of technology startups in content marketing and business development roles. Rachel is a writer and holds a BA in English Literature and Film, having also lectured in communication and advertising at various universities in the UK and Australia. Rachel currently lives in New York City. Without further ado, welcome Rachel.
Thank you so much, Adam. That was a very nice introduction. And thank you to everybody today who is joining us for our webinar. So today I'm going to be covering or uncovering the power of visual storytelling, which is a very topical area of digital content production. So what is visual storytelling? So visual storytelling is boosting engagement with online content from editorial and commercial projects through from marketing agencies to communications agencies. It lifts stories out of the ordinary, and it's proven to drive more traffic and dramatically boost key engagement metrics from dwell times to click-through and also shareability. And historically, there have been challenges, usually time and technical resource, and the restriction of existing production systems like CMS systems. But these barriers are being lifted and big returns are being had. So what I wanted to do first is just kind of look at the historical origins of visual storytelling. Where did it all begin? We know that this isn't a new thing, and to use a unconventional comparison, we've all had stories read to us as children, and what we recall from those books and you know, those tales we were told were not just the words, but the way that they were spoken to us, the images that were conjured by our parents, and also, of course, the pictures on the page. And there's nothing different from that kind of very grassroots comparison through to today. In a digital landscape, we are trying to capture the reader's attention in a very saturated marketplace, and it's becoming harder and harder to get people's attention. So let's have a look at some stories that kind of started the long form as we know it today. And when I refer to long form, it's a very, very broad category. So what I'm speaking about when I say long form is anything where the reader is scrolling from top to bottom, and the story itself is image-led or video-led rather than just text on a page. So something that we refer to as multimedia storytelling. This story that is on screen at the moment is a Pitchfork piece. This was one of the original kind of long-form immersive pieces. It was very GIF-heavy. And then there was ESPN. They did a piece on the long, strange trip of Doc Ellis. And this, again, was something that was very different from what they were producing at the time. And another Pitchfork, this was a Daft Punk piece, again, that really lifted the content off the page. And then we moved to Snowfall. So I am assuming some of you would have read this. This was an incredibly well-read piece by the New York Times, and is considered by most as the pioneer of long form as we know it today. And that's not to say that all long form looks like Snowfall today, but it certainly did provoke a lot of conversation around the look and feel and the experience that readers had when they were reading this piece. And the Twitter sphere blew up across this story, and many journalists were contesting whether this was a great idea or whether this was an absolutely terrible idea. But I think the stats speak for themselves. So the article itself was published December 2012. It garnered 3.5 million views in the first week, which is absolutely enormous, and a 12-minute average time on page. So the New York Times at this point was garnering between a 60-second to a minute time on page, and that was on articles created in CMS. So in comparison, this was a huge departure and an incredible metric. It garnered 10,000 shares. It was actually over 10,000 shares on Twitter. And it was awarded the Pulitzer Prize and also the Peabody Prize. So it was very, very well received. That's not to say that there weren't people contesting it. A lot of people were saying that, you know, it was a fantastic story and it had all these views, but they could have perhaps been using it for an article or piece that was a topic that deserved more attention. For example, you know, events in the Middle East, and also at the time, Hurricane Katrina was occurring. So many people were saying that this was a distraction. Some were saying it was a welcome distraction. So I wanted to just pull up some metrics and stats from around the long form kind of world. So a study published by Brookings focused on long form found that stories averaging 1,200 words drove 23% more engagement and lifted other metrics such as page views up by 11%, sharing by 45%, and reading time by 36%. This is all in comparison to any article created in a regular CMS system. So Brookings also found that stories presented with a photo scored 19% higher in engagement than stories without photos, and stories with multiple photos scored 43% higher. So from looking at these stats, it's no kind of wonder that many companies were looking at ways to recreate and sort of replicate what had been achieved with Snowfall on another level. Just going back to Snowfall, that piece took 6 months to create and 16 developers. So you can only imagine the cost of their time across the 6 months. So it was phenomenal, the amount of time, the amount of resource that went in. And coming back to that point, there was this real kind of pain point where, you know, we knew that, and companies knew, brands knew, not just news orgs, that this was a phenomenal way to fully engage a reader and to better tell their story. And that's what this all comes back to, is telling our story in the most compelling way. So it's no wonder that off the back of this success, many little companies started popping up with tools that were enabling everyone from editors at news orgs through to communications managers at companies to be able to create a similar long-form immersive piece. So you may have heard of companies like Atavist. Of course, you'll be familiar with Medium, who now create content, but also have established a platform for sharing content. Wix are a website tool, but they do also allow, you know, some sort of long-form storytelling component. Storied, Tilda, Squarespace, all of these companies allowing brands and companies to create long-form and immersive stories on the web. And that's where we get to shorthand. So off the back of the success and the metrics that were being seen, Shorthand was founded with a view to enable everybody access to a tool that will create, without coding, a beautifully immersive long-form piece. So a narrative in which you can inject with video, with SoundCloud bites, through to YouTube, and also gives you the ability to embed from other third-party tools. So there was this real need at that point to do that. And I will come back to a demo with Shorthand to show you how we can achieve that and why it is so easy. And we're often out and about at many events, keeping our kind of ears close to the ground on what's happening in the world of not only news publishing, but also internally at organisations who are trying to tell their story, what's happening. We were recently at an event called Well Told in the UK, and Chartbeat were there. Chartbeat, for those who aren't familiar with them, are a analytics company specifically for the publishing industry. They looked at the top 10 stories by average engaged time so far in the UK. Out of those 10 stories, 5 were created with Shorthand, which is, as you can tell, it's a phenomenal fact. And the top 5 stories, out of those top 10, the top 2 were made in Shorthand. And the dwell time on those was between 3 minutes and 6.5 minutes. So we're still getting those really long engaged times, and that's definitely not going to change for a while. So just to look at some of our own figures, we see on average around a 4 to 10 times boost in dwell time across Shorthand stories. And we also know that 50% of mobile traffic, mobile traffic to Shorthand stories is 50% and more, which means, and I'm sure everybody on this webinar is aware of this, we are consuming most of our content now on our mobile devices. And it's quite frightening how much time we all spend. I am very guilty of this. Apparently, according to new stats, within 15 minutes of rising, 85% of us have looked at our phone, which is both terrifying and very interesting. So we know that creating for mobile and thinking mobile first is absolutely the way we need to be thinking. It's not in the future, it's absolutely now, it's yesterday. And with our program, you are able to do that by looking at the mobile view and creating a story that is specific to that format. Some of you on this call may be asking, I'm not a publisher, why would I use this format? And we get asked this a lot. On the outset of things, Shorthand has been used predominantly by publishers such as the BBC. We work with CBC in Canada. We work with a range of other very large publishing organisations. However, last year, when we looked at our stats and broke down our client base, 60% of our clients were actually from the marketing and communications departments of companies. So actually very interesting for us, because we ourselves thought that it was skewed more to publishers. And I guess why is that? Well, it comes down to the very simple fact that everybody has a story to tell, and visual storytelling is suited to showcasing, for example, products with flair, injecting richness into research and reports, creating immersive annual reports, and importantly, avoiding death by PowerPoint for internal presentations like the one you're watching right now. So this presentation that I'm giving you is all created in Shorthand. So I guess the possibilities are limited only by your creativity, and if you want to use a format that is going to have cut through, then looking at one of these long form tools is definitely something that we would recommend. So inspiration, getting started, what's the story? So one thing I really wanted to talk about in this webinar, is how do you tell your story? And this is the most fundamental part of capturing your reader. You must have you know, a great story to tell, and think about that and think about ways that you can really bring that to life. And it may be you know, something like an annual report that you might not necessarily first think of using long form for, but you know, when you actually want to put the reader into the story and, you know, share with them your vision, your company vision, then this becomes a very, very relevant format. So when does it work? When it makes something easier to understand, when it takes in depth with clarity, it offers a concise overview, it adds context, whether that's geographical or a comparison, it relays atmosphere, and it shows or invokes emotion and reaction, and that is key. So now we're just going to have a look at some stories out in the wild. So the first is adding richness to an annual report. So I'm going to stop talking for a little while and just kind of let these beautiful pieces speak for themselves. This is a Rockefeller Foundation annual report, as you can all see, from 2015. So I'll just scroll through just so you can see, and this was obviously created in shorthand. When we're thinking about an annual report, this is the most important document a business is going to produce. And you're not only trying to showcase the business externally to the public, you're also having to showcase this to the shareholders and to your employees. So it needs to encompass the essence of the organization. And we have, over the last year, well, this is 2015, but was produced earlier this year, we have seen an uptick in the number of organizations like the Rockefeller Foundation utilizing shorthand in a way to bolster their traditional annual report, which of course is required by law. And it really is lifting the stories off the page. So here you can see we have videos embedded, and there are videos and key quotes and key call-outs that really dig deeper, even this says it digs deeper, into the report itself. So this is a wonderful addition to have alongside another annual report, or rather an extension to illustrate the more captivating elements. And obviously you can flick through here as well. Using the nav bar. So next, showcasing products with flair. This is a piece by Elle and Hudsons Bay, completely different, but one I'd like to show you all the same. So we'll just have a look. Important to realise that the title is it's your shop window. It's where you capture your audience. So the more vibrant and more eye-catching it is, the better. And this is a shoppable piece. So you actually, this is a little, I think it's about a year old, so the links don't work now, but you could buy it now when this piece was originally live. Again, we've got call-outs that just bring this to life more than it would and jumps off the page if it was in a normal CMS. Then injecting richness into research and reports. So brands, companies alike are constantly seeking ways to better present data, better present research. And you know, to use an example, so this is Ghost in the Machine. This is a piece by Euromoney, institutional investor, and Baker McKenzie. This was a piece on artificial intelligence, and they have really highlighted not only the basics in what they're actually doing and achieving through this narrative, but they've created custom assets that really bring out all of those points. So they've created this kind of join the dots effect that is carried through the entire piece. And I haven't mentioned, and it is a miss of me, that you'll notice as I'm going through these stories that they seem to be very sectional, and that's because building a story in shorthand is through using section types. So here, this is our 2-column scrollmation, and they're discussing, machine learning and AI and how that's going to have an effect on their business, and of course, kind of looking at the effects across different business functions. So here, this lovely graph, and this is created very simply using still images. So that's one image, 2 images, 4 images, sorry. So as I'm scrolling, all I'm doing here is scrolling, and important to notice that you want to give the reader control when they're going through this. And on the left-hand side there, you can see again they've used 2-column scrollmation, one of our section types, again to really highlight those positive and negative there. And then offering rich how-to guides. So this is a rather fun one. This is a how to play poker guide, but another great example in how long form can play a part. Instead of having this in sort of a standard PDF, this is rich in video and rich in image. And of course, we know humans learn better by being taught through video, just by reading something from a page. So another nice example here, and as I scroll, as I'm reading about each of the positions, it's being highlighted to me. And I will also distribute all of these examples that I'm showing to you now. And last but not least, lists. So this is an example for Business Insider. It's a piece of sponsored content, 5 places in the Miami area you should visit this summer. So a simpler piece, also embedded with ads. And you can see how they've used the images to highlight each of the tourist destinations. Okay, so using interactivity with purpose. So it's all well and good. You have your story. You definitely know you want to use some great assets. You've got video. You have things ready. So you want to put them all in. What is really important is not to overwhelm your reader. You need to ensure that every single piece of interactivity is backed up with a purpose. It relates to something actually in your story. So if it's the annual report and you're showing interviews, they're not just popped in there randomly. They speak to something very specific, so that the reader stays with the story, because if you give them any reason whatsoever to leave the story, they will. So we'll just have a quick look at some other examples. So breaking down complexities. And this is one of my favorite pieces that I've seen created in shorthand. This was by the Knowledge Society and the University of Western Australia. The reason I love this piece is that the assets have all specifically been created for the format. And this is a really unique story. It's a kind of an overview of the entire state's innovation and opportunity brought to life. And a friend of mine used a great example. If you're reading a book, and I'm going to use probably a terrible book example, but say you're reading The Hunger Games and it's visual enough already, you can imagine yourself on that island, all well and good. But when you're presenting, a really in-depth view of something, and you need to put the reader into that kind of vision. And bring it to life for them. And also, this isn't a book. It's not going to be that long. It's not going to be a Snowfall, which was 17,000 words. You may have a long-form piece that is 1,000 words long, which would still be considered very long in terms of text. So this is why I love this piece, is that for everything that they cover, every element, you're taken there with these very fun graphics. That's our backgrounds formation, and some of the things that I'm referencing in terms of section types will make sense once I get into the actual demonstration itself. And I apologize, the internet's making some things a bit funny. So my favorite part of this story is created in 2-column scrollmation, which gives an animated effect. So in this part of the piece, they have this growing kind of, I guess you call it a 3D pie, or totem rather. So each of these is an individual image that has been placed in there to give the effect of a video, but I'm actually controlling this, which is just really fun, and presenting the information in a very visual, very compelling manner. And one of slightly older story and a very emotive story. This was a piece by The Telegraph about a family that fled Syria for Europe, and unfortunately, very sadly, one of the family members, 8-year-old Safa, didn't make it. It's you know, it's a horrific story, but they've done a really good job in kind of bringing it to life in a very sympathetic visual manner. And there are a few things I want to highlight. The first is in this area, this is using 2-column scrollmation. And as the narrative is brought to life, they've used a map on the right-hand side. These are just static images. So that's the first, the second, the third. So as I'm scrolling, as I'm actually learning about where they were through the narrative, that is highlighted on the right-hand side. So just a really nice way of giving the reader the means to put themselves in the story again. And then further down in the story, they've used 2-column scrollmation for this data and created this graph. And I'm going to let you into a little secret, and I hope no one from The Telegraph is on this call at the moment, but they did actually use Excel for this, to create this graph. So whilst it looks complex and very professional, you can sort of see how easy it is to create very professional looking graphics very easily. This is my favorite part of the story. This is a depiction of how many Syrians, or the dispersion of Syrians crossing the border out of the country. This is created in what we call text over media, and this is 2 images, just 2 images entered into the back end, into the editor. This is the first that we're looking at now, and as I scroll, I'm just revealing that second image, which is underneath, but it gives us this really great effect of the arrows kind of moving in an upwards motion, transitioning up, but just really brings that to life. So yeah, one of my favorite uses of that section type. I'll show you that one. So last but not least, I wanted to showcase this piece by Rob Report, and this was in conjunction with BMW, as you can see, but they've used our section types to great effect. So this is an animated video on loop with the snow effect, then the actual product showcased using our reveal effect. And then here, the whole story is that these 3 executives are going to Antarctica on an adventure, on a mission, and they've used reveal here to put them into their snow gear, which is just a very effective way of kind of segueing from their regular lives into the next stage of the story. And I'll send this to you for you all to have a look at in your own time. So without further ado, I do want to jump into a really quick look at the editor. I want to showcase how easy it is for you to create not only pieces that I've shown, but also things like the annual reports. We have clients using this for marketing materials, for pitching to clients, for just such a wide variety of uses. So we'll just hop in to the editor. So Shorthand is a SaaS platform. You pay for a subscription and then you have a login. Most of our subscriptions work on an unlimited story basis, and I'm happy to discuss that either privately, one-on-one with you, or if you have questions at the end, more than happy to cover that. So once you've logged in, you'll head to our story dashboard, which I will show. So this is a view of all of my stories that I've currently been working on, and here you can see this is my presentation that I'm using right now. So we can go into any of these stories and edit them. I can change the owner, copy, etc. I can also share, see what shared stories I have with my team. There's a number of stories in here. We also have a very in-depth knowledge base, which you can see to my right. So I'm just going to get started and show you how to create. So this is our title page. As I mentioned before, this is your shop window. This is where you hook your reader. So whatever we put in here needs to be compelling and really set the scene for the rest of our story. So to change out the images, we simply click on the green icon, and then I can add video. So I'm going to add this video. And then it also asks me for a fallback image. So everything created in shorthand is fully optimized for every device type. So we automatically create different versions of the images you upload, or images, I should say, multimedia content, to ensure that what's served to your reader will be suitable for that device. So one thing you don't have to worry about, as I said, no coding. So we can move around the text. You can make it larger, make it smaller. You can highlight, so all the usual kind of editing features you would expect, linking, bold, italic. And then to add new sections, we simply click Add Section. These are the section types that you have. Background scrollmation. So that section type I showed to you, this is in this story here. Actually, we didn't get down to it, but I will quickly go through it. So this is, up here, this is 2-column scrollmation. I will come back and find a background scrollmation. So here we can create animation effect. So if I clear out the images, and you can see once you've got your images ready to go, and that's something I will sort of talk about in my summary, is having all of your assets ready and having a game plan and a storyboard of your story is very important. So before you get into creating your actual story itself. So we can move around the text column, and you can also create pull-out quotes, and we can also add media. So in line with our text, we can add image, video, YouTube, or SoundCloud. So I can pop in any URL, and that will just bring it straight in, and that will be fully optimized. So let's pop in a SoundCloud. And you'll also notice we have add HTML. So this is a section type great to use if we don't support anything or something out of the box. For example, you want to embed an infographic, or if you wanted to, I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with Night Lab tools. I recommend you all check them out. They have a range of journalist tools that are very, very handy for story creation, from a map tool, timeline tool, so definitely check them out. So you could add in your embed code here. Also, this is great if you wanted to pop in a tweet. So if I go into Twitter, I can, here we go, shorthand. I'm just going to take this one by Ricky, and I can embed, then I can copy that code, and I can just pop that in here. And it won't give me a preview here, but I know when I go to look at my story, I can check that that's actually worked. So adding sections, you can see, is very easy, and this is 2-column scrollmation. So again, creating that effect. So that's the effect that in Ghost in the Machine they had used to create that very, very cool sort of piling, stacking chart, if I can find it. As you can see, this is one of the longer stories. Oh, I've lost him. They've used, for all of these charts, they've used 2-column scrollmation. So we just clear out the images, and we can just add our new images very quickly. And if we wanted to add a link or a reference, we could do here. So I'd pop in my name. There we go. And again, in our text column, we have the ability to move it to the left or to the right. And we can add media again. And we can add HTML. In this section type, we can also choose to place our scrollmation image in line with the text, very simply. We have text over media. Text over media creates that scrolling effect I showed you in the Syria example. So we do now have reveal, which is an easier way of achieving this effect, and we can also choose the direction of the transition, but I'll just show you here. So very quickly, you can see the effect that this delivers. So here we've just put in 2 pictures of Michelangelo, and you can see that I get that really nice kind of transitional effect. And with text over media, it can also be a video. If you do put a video in here, it will be autoplay, and I can get rid of my text and have it just as an image. And we also have the caption bar. So again, you can type any notes, any references, any credits to photographers that you need to add in. Reveal. Reveal is one of our newer functions. So this is in which we can create a transitional effect. So I'm going to pop in a map and show you how easy it is to create this awesome effect. So once they've loaded, in between each image, if you click, you can go fade, down, up, left or right. So I'm going to fade, then I'm going to go up because my painting went to Poland, then I'm going to go left, disappear, so I'm going to fade. I'm going to have nothing on that one. Reappear, so we'll go left, and then we'll go down. So how quick was that? So as you can see, all the different effects have been applied. So it goes left, fades, and then it reappears in London. And then it goes down to Florence. So a really useful and very versatile section type. Media. Media is a full screen media section type. This won't be cropped to a center point, which is how our other section types do work. So you can add a video in here that will be controlled by the reader themselves. Like, I don't have one. We'll pop in a YouTube. How's that? There we go. Text speaks for itself. Again, you can add inline, you can add HTML to that section type. Then we also have HTML section. So this will be a full screen, full width HTML section that you can bring in from elsewhere around the world. So let's go to Embed Responsively, which is one of my favorite websites. So we can pick this from Daily Motion. What is it? Oh, Hadaway, What is Love? Great song. So we can take that embed code, and again we can just pop that in, and just a note that you won't see what it looks like until we use the preview up here. So in our toolbar we can click preview, and that will render us a version of our story. And also with preview you can view for tablet and for phone in different either landscape or portrait. And again, it will take a few seconds. It's just generating that preview. We go back in here, so you can see our video. This is our background scrollmation with our embedded YouTube. We've got our quote from my CEO. And then 2-column scrollmation. And this is text over media. And then this is our reveal. So you can see our transitions. And that was our full screen. So this, I need to click that to play. Full screen media and text. And then this was our embed. that we took from Embed Responsibly. So you can see how that works. And then back into our editor, here you can see the different view on mobile so that you can check exactly how that looks. And as we all know, mobile is absolutely paramount, and we should all be building for mobile. Last but not least, we do have the ability to create a navigation very easily. So over here on the right hand side, I can simply add my descriptor and add to nav, and very, very easily create my navigation. And you can see how, obviously I've had a lot of practice doing this, but how quick this is to use. So there we go, we can see, and it will automatically act as an anchor, so we can whiz through. Just before I sum up and go to questions, we do also have the ability to add your Google Analytics tracking ID. If you do use other tracking, we can add that into what we call a theme, which is where we set up your branding. So that will include your text, your font, your logo, and any colorways that you want us to apply. So any CSS that you would rather not code on a piece by piece basis. So we can do that for you in themes. So here you can see all of our clients and their themes that we have set up. Sharing, so I guess that was going to be part of my summary, is that promoting your story is, of course, one of the most important things. If this is going to be a piece of public work, you want to get as much publicity as you can, as many people looking at it as possible. So definitely think about your sharing and promotion strategies before you publish. It's tempting to think about it afterwards, but definitely having a plan will enable you to really reap the rewards and see the same kind of metrics that our other clients are seeing around the globe. So you can also add CSS, you can add JavaScript. These are what we call developer tools. You don't need to touch them, but they're there if you do need to. And then very, very, very quickly, I will touch on publishing. So publishing is one of those things that's unique to each of our clients. We have a range of different options, from downloading a zip folder which contains static web pages that you would host on your own, for example, your Amazon S3 bucket, and then you would point to that from your current CMS. There's just a range of ways. So we also have a WordPress plugin. We have a Drupal plugin also. So both very handy for pulling shorthand stories directly into your current template. And we also offer promotion of your story, which sounds to do with social, but what we mean by this is taking an embed code and placing that onto your CMS, whether that's Squarespace, WordPress, Wix, Tilda. So it gives you a pop-up, and I'll show you how that looks with this AJC piece. So this is created, of course, in AJC's current CMS. So this is what theirs looks like, pretty standard. And then here you can see they have this blurred out tile, and if we press enter, this pops up the shorthand story over that URL. So a really nice way of keeping the reader on the page. They're not being redirected. They can easily close it, but they can read the story. They can engage with it. They can share it. They can see they've actually added a subscribe button here, and then you can simply click close, and that will take you straight back to where you were. So a really nice closed loop in terms of a user journey. So that pretty much kind of wraps up the demo of the tool itself. I hope that you found that helpful. I just wanted to very quickly summarize before we go into question time. So I guess the biggest thing is mobile. Don't let mobile be an afterthought. Ensure that you are creating all of your stories and your work unless they have a very specific use. Plan beforehand. So we have a range of tools that you can use and rely on. to storyboard. We also do offer what we call a kick-off session that can be organised with our training and support manager in London. Plan your promotion, I've touched on that already, and a call to action. You know, if someone's got to the end of your story, they're clearly interested, they want to know more about your company, so don't let that be the last engagement. You know, think about what's the opportunity there, how can you, further that engagement. So thinking about that is key. The title section is your shop window. I've mentioned that several times. And that pretty much covers it. So I'll hand back to Adam to facilitate questions. I hope you found it interesting. I hope it has sparked some kind of discussion, and yeah, I hope to chat to all of you soon.
Well, thank you, Rachel. A very informative webinar. We've had several questions come in. The first is, besides HTML, can we edit in XML or similar languages?
That is a very good question. So the best answer I have for that is, after you've exported or after you've created your story and gone to publish, you can download that file, and then yes, you can edit that in whatever format you need to.
Excellent. Thank you, Rachel. The next question has come in is, would we be able to import content from our content management system?
It would depend how and what it was. So you can, if your CMS will allow you to build an embed code, then yes. Perhaps whoever asked that question and I can have a bit of an in-depth chat about exactly how, and give me some examples on what that might look like.
Great. Thank you, Rachel. The next question is, can we apply our branding and or fonts to the story?
Yes, you can. So you would create that in your theme. So we offer a theme, so it's something that we create. There's a form that you would fill out in which we add your fonts, your logo, and so on. If you wanted us to create multiple themes, then we could do that for you too. And just to touch on themes a bit more, the reason that we do it the way we do, in that you apply a theme instead of being able to change the font within the editor, is so that you retain consistency and control. So no one can just pop in there and change the font. It will always be the right font.
Great, thank you. The next question that has come up is, what's the general turnaround for a shorthand story?
Yeah, great question. So if you have all your assets ready to go and you have a story, sort of a storyboard, and you have copy ready to go, you can see how quick it is to actually assemble. I would say the average length of time from actual kind of inception of the idea to the actual output varies enormously by the company, but on average, I'd say two to 3 weeks, generally, max. And it depends again sort of on the content, how long it is, if people are creating custom assets, etc. So, but the actual putting together a shorthand story is a very, very fast part of the process. Great,
thank you. The last question that came in, Rachel, is how do you publish a story?
Great question again. So there are many different ways, and I think I'd love to have some conversations with people after this, depending on what type of CMS system you use, depends on the type of publishing we recommend. Most of our clients, or a lot of our clients, will download the files and then they will host that on their Amazon S3 bucket. They will then point to that from their CMS system. Other ways that you can do that, as you saw, were with the pop-up, and also with the WordPress plugin. You can actually just download that in your WordPress, and then using the API, it will recognize any stories that you've created in shorthand, and it will give you a list so that you can select those, and then they will populate into your WordPress template. So, bit of a mouthful, but it's actually very straightforward. And one thing I didn't mention, actually, we have one-click. So some of our larger enterprise clients are now migrating to one-click, which, excuse me, if I hop back in here, you can see it says publish to a server, and they can actually select the server to publish straight to, and then they can publish their story straight from this window, which is really helpful.
Great, thank you, Rachel. This was all the questions that have come in, and thank you everyone for attending today's webinar. This will conclude today's broadcast. You'll be able to access the recorded version of this webinar in the webinar archive section of our website, located at www.dclab.com. Our next webinar will be Tuesday, July 11th at 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, titled Future Proofing Your Content, which is being presented by Sarah O'Keefe, Chief Executive Officer of Scriptorium Publishing. Thank you everyone for attending, and have a great day.
Thank you everyone, that was great. Thank you, bye.